They came for selfies, sunsets, and souvenirs, but left in body bags. Europe may be the land of romance and culture, but for these unlucky tourists, it was also their final destination, literally. From eerie accidents to baffling disappearances, these 5 chilling cases prove that sometimes the scariest part of traveling isn't lost luggage. It's never making it home. In March 2024, just before Easter, Storm Nelson wreaked havoc across parts of Spain and the UK, with southern Spain bearing the brunt of the destructive weather. Fierce gusts, torrential rain, and towering waves threatened to spoil the Easter festivities, prompting Spain's state weather agency to issue a risk alert. Despite the warnings, many travelers had already made their plans, determined to spend their holiday in Spain, hoping the storm would pass. While the storm cast a dark cloud over celebrations, the determination of both locals and travelers shone through as they braced for the challenges ahead. One such traveler was 62-year-old John, a British man visiting Spain with his partner. The couple had chosen Spain, hoping for pleasant weather during their getaway. However, the unexpected arrival of Storm Nelson disrupted their plans. On March the 27th, 2024, they traveled about 200 miles from Valencia to the charming village of San Esteban de Pravia in Muros de Nalón. They were joined by friends and planned to spend a week in this picturesque town, soaking in the scenery and unwinding. This was John's first visit to the area, and although the weather was less than ideal, they remained hopeful. After arriving, the couple checked into their rented apartment, where the landlady warned them about the approaching storm. Despite the unsettling weather forecast, John and his partner decided to make the best of their trip. The next day, March 28th, they set out to explore the village. The couple wandered the town and took photos, while their friends stayed behind. Around 1 p.m., they decided to take a walk along a breakwater, a stone structure stretching out into the sea. Unfortunately, as they reached the end of the breakwater, a rogue wave, larger than expected, struck with terrifying force. It knocked John off his feet and sent him crashing into the water. In a horrifying moment, the waves dragged him away from his wife, pulling him into the churning sea. His wife, in shock and desperation, immediately alerted the authorities. A helicopter and a team of firefighters were dispatched to search for John. Despite their best efforts, it wasn't until 2 p.m. that John's body was found in the San Esteban estuary, a short distance from the breakwater. A crane mechanism was required to retrieve his remains, using nearly 100 feet of cable to lift him to safety. The body was brought back to the breakwater, where city officials took charge of the situation. An autopsy was scheduled for the following day to determine the exact cause of death. In the wake of this tragedy, John's wife was forced to contend not only with the heartbreak of losing her husband, but also with false rumors that John had fallen while trying to take a selfie. These damaging rumors sparked unnecessary online hate and criticism. To clear her husband's name, a woman who knew John published a letter in a Spanish newspaper, confirming that John had not been attempting to take a selfie when he tragically fell. She hoped that, through this, John's death would not be in vain, and called for investment in better warning systems to prevent future tragedies in the area. John's untimely death serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictable power of nature, as well as the need for stronger safety measures for tourists who may not fully understand the dangers of such locations. In July 2017, 22-year-old Bakari Henderson was living his best life on the Greek island of Zakynthos. Fresh out of the University of Arizona with a finance and entrepreneurship degree, he was on the brink of launching his own clothing line. Before diving into business, he wanted to celebrate sun, sea, and unforgettable nights with friends. Zakynthos, famous for its stunning beaches and vibrant nightlife, seemed like the perfect place. Bakari and his friends spent their days cliff diving in secret spots, laughing, and soaking up the carefree atmosphere. He was the heart of the group, the kind of guy who always had your back and brought positive energy wherever he went. The trip was shaping up to be a dream vacation. For Bakari, traveling felt freeing. As a young black man in America, he knew certain unspoken rules. But overseas, those rules seemed to loosen, making the world feel a little kinder. That night, after a day of adventure, he and his friends headed to Laganas, the island's wildest party district, ready to celebrate. A Serbian waitress invited them into a club. Drinks flowed, music thumped, and the night was young. At around 3 a.m., Bakari took a selfie with the waitress. A simple, harmless moment. But one man in the bar saw it differently. A Serbian man, seething with anger, demanded to know why she was talking to a black man. His hostility escalated quickly. He threw a punch. Bakari, taken off guard, tried to defend himself, but he wasn't facing just one man. More men, several Serbians, a Greek, and a British citizen, joined in. The atmosphere shifted from carefree to violent in seconds. Bakari bolted out of the bar, but the mob chased him. CCTV footage captured the horrifying scene. A group of about 10 men surrounding him, mercilessly beating him, with most blows landing on his head. His friends barely had time to react before it was too late. By the time they reached him, Bakari was gone. In 2018, 9 men were identified and brought to trial, but instead of being charged with murder, 6 were found guilty of deadly assault, a much lighter charge, while 3 others walked free. For Bakari's family, the verdict was a gut punch. Justice had slipped through their fingers. A Greek prosecutor, also disturbed by the verdict, ordered a retrial, possible in Greece due to the lack of double jeopardy laws. Even Kamala Harris took notice, bringing the case to the Greek Prime Minister. However, delays kept pushing justice further out of reach. Finally, in 2022, a Greek court upheld the original convictions. But by then, 5 of the convicted men had been released, and the 6th had his sentence reduced. The outcome felt like a bitter aftertaste. Justice delayed and denied. Bakari's family fought tirelessly, hoping for real accountability, but the system failed them. Their son, full of promise, was taken in an instant, over a selfie, over a senseless act of hate. They now dedicate themselves to keeping his memory alive and pushing for a world where this never happens again. Bakari Henderson had dreams, drive, and an unshakable spirit. He should have come home with stories of sun-drenched beaches and laughter-filled nights. Instead, his story became one of tragedy, injustice, and a brutal reminder that racism knows no borders. His loved ones are left with memories and a fight for answers that should have never been necessary. In April 2019, Patrick Maguire, his wife Anna, and 2 close friends set off on a short but exciting trip to Scotland. The couple, Americans from Wisconsin, had long dreamed of exploring the country's rich history and stunning landscapes. Patrick, a 67-year-old university professor, was a man of wisdom, wit, and an enduring love for literature. Over the years, he had inspired countless students to appreciate the written word, leaving an indelible mark on the academic community. This trip was not just a vacation. It was an opportunity to create cherished memories in a land filled with literary tradition. Patrick was known for his love of engaging conversations, but he also had a deep appreciation for quiet moments. He found solace in simple pleasures, watching the stars, enjoying a cigarette, and taking in the world around him. On the evening of April 13th, at around 10:30 p.m., he decided to step outside alone, camera in hand, to capture the beauty of the Scottish Highlands. He and his group were staying at the Glengarry Castle Hotel, a charming Victorian-era establishment overlooking the picturesque Loch Oish. The setting was perfect for a peaceful night under the vast Highland sky. Outside the hotel, 2 Victorian cast-iron benches sat on the grass near the walls. Heavy and seemingly sturdy, they had been in place for decades. What Patrick didn't know, however, was that 2 years prior, hotel management had embedded wooden blocks beneath them to prevent them from sinking into the grass. As Patrick sat down, he instinctively leaned back, expecting the solid support of the bench. But, in a cruel twist of fate, the entire structure tipped backward. Before he could react, Patrick fell, his head striking the hard wall behind him. The weight of the 158-pound, 72 kilograms, cast-iron bench pinned him down, rendering him unable to free himself. Trapped in an unnatural position, his head pressed against the wall, his neck bent forward, and his chin resting on his chest, Patrick lay there unnoticed for nearly 2 hours. Inside the hotel, Anna was getting ready for bed when she realized something was wrong. Patrick hadn't returned. She called his phone, but there was no answer. Worried, she set out to search the hotel grounds. That's when she stumbled upon a heartbreaking sight. Her husband was slumped against the wall, unresponsive. Frantic, she called emergency services, but it was too late. Patrick Maguire had passed away, the victim of an almost inconceivably tragic accident. Investigators later determined that a 2017 safety audit had not identified the benches as a potential hazard. A separate inspection by a health and safety executive (HSE) official concluded that the benches were structurally sound, but should have been placed on a hard surface rather than grass. The hotel owners were initially fined £21,000, though the amount was later reduced to £14,000 after they promptly accepted responsibility for the incident. The 2 cast-iron benches, which had been in use for 60 years, were permanently removed and replaced with wooden alternatives to prevent any future accidents. Sheriff Gary Aitken, who presided over the case, summed up the tragedy with poignant words. "No one goes on holiday expecting not to return, and one would assume there are few activities with lower risk than sitting outside a Highland hotel to smoke a cigarette and enjoy the evening." Indeed, Patrick Maguire's untimely passing serves as a sobering reminder of life's unpredictability. What should have been a quiet, reflective moment under the Scottish night sky instead turned into an unthinkable disaster, leaving his loved ones grappling with the loss of a man whose intellect, kindness, and passion for literature had touched so many lives. In early November 2014, 23-year-old Sylvia Rajel was living her dream. A medical student from Lublin, Poland, she had finally arrived in Seville, Spain, a place she had fantasized about for years. Spain had always fascinated her, and she had spent countless hours mastering the language, eager to use it fluently. This wasn't just another trip, it was the fulfillment of a long-held dream. Sylvia was an Erasmus student at the University of Merida, training to become a nurse. Known for her bright smile, striking blue eyes, and long black hair, it was her kindness and ambition that truly set her apart. Her dream was simple: to complete her studies and build a life in Spain, where she had fallen in love with the culture. Her friends and family knew how determined she was to make that dream a reality. Her visit to Seville, Andalusia's largest city, was part of an organized trip with a student association. She explored the historic streets, marveled at the vibrant culture, and soaked in every bit of the Spanish experience. But she didn't know that her dream trip would soon take a tragic turn. On the night of November 2nd, just after midnight, she found herself on the Puente de Triana, one of Seville's most iconic landmarks. Built in 1852, the stunning metal arch bridge offers breathtaking views of the city and attracts tourists eager to snap photos. Sylvia, like many others, wanted to capture the moment. With the lights of Seville twinkling around her, she climbed onto the metal ledge of the bridge to take a selfie. It was meant to be a simple, joyful memory. But in an instant, everything changed. She lost her balance and fell 15 feet onto a concrete footing below. Onlookers gasped in horror as she hit the ground. Bystanders immediately called for an ambulance. When paramedics arrived, they found Sylvia in cardiac arrest, her body broken by the fall. Despite their best efforts to revive her and rush her to the Hospital of Traumatology, her injuries were too severe. The bright, ambitious young woman, so full of life and dreams, did not survive. Her parents were devastated, struggling to comprehend the cruel twist of fate that took their daughter so suddenly. One moment, she had been experiencing the trip of a lifetime, and the next, she was gone. The loss left a void in the lives of those who loved her. The accident also sent shockwaves through Seville. Authorities, recognizing the dangers posed by high-traffic tourist spots, began reevaluating safety measures along the river's scenic boulevards. Sylvia's tragic fall became a sobering reminder of how fragile life can be, even in moments of joy. Her story serves as both a cautionary tale and a tribute to the adventurous spirit she embodied. Sylvia Rajel was a young woman with big dreams and a heart full of passion. Though her life was cut short, her love for Spain and life will always be remembered by those who knew her. On July 18, 2016, 17-year-old Mike Manshold set off on what was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime, his first solo trip abroad. A seasoned explorer, Mike had already braved the wilds of Canada with his father. But this time, there were no parents, no guides, just Mike, a rented bike, and Malta. It was supposed to be thrilling. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. His girlfriend was in Malta for a language course, so they spent a few days together before she flew back to Germany. But Mike wasn't ready to leave. With his gray backpack, a few €100, a straw hat for the sun, and his GoPro to capture it all, he pedaled off into the unknown. His last message to his father was casual, a voice note about steep roads and a promise to send a picture soon. That picture never came. By July 19th, Mike had failed to return his bike. By July 22nd, he missed his flight home. Alarm bells rang, and his family launched a search. 8 days later, on July 26th, Mike's body was discovered at the base of the Dingley Cliffs, a 29-meter drop. His bike dangled in a bush above, his shoes and sunglasses scattered. But something was off. His backpack, GoPro, and other belongings had vanished. Authorities quickly ruled his death an accident. Case closed. But for Mike's father, Bernd Manshold, something didn't add up. At the site, a doctor informed him that Mike's back had been broken in 2 places. That relief, however, was short-lived. At the morgue, a staff member pulled him aside with shocking news. There were no fractures at all. Stranger still, the rented bike had barely a scratch. If Mike had truly fallen, how was the bike practically intact? And when Bernd asked about his son's missing belongings, authorities handed him an old Canon camera, trying to pass it off as Mike's GoPro. It wasn't. When he pointed this out, they had no explanation. Things got weirder when Mike's body was returned to Germany. A second autopsy revealed a gruesome discovery. Most of Mike's organs were missing. His heart, lungs, liver, pancreas, and brain had all vanished. What remained? His left kidney, diaphragm, spleen, and large intestine. His body weighed just 32 kilograms, 70 pounds. Even more unsettling, despite Maltese law requiring embalming before transporting a body, Mike's body had not been embalmed at all. Maltese forensic specialist Mario Sherry claimed rodents had eaten the missing organs. German specialists disagreed. If animals were responsible, there would have been bite marks, and liquefied brain matter would have left traces. There were none. The German team couldn't rule out suffocation or internal bleeding due to the body's condition, but the lack of external injuries raised doubts. Bernd pressed for answers, but Maltese authorities were dismissive. They shrugged off Mike's missing belongings, suggesting a tourist had stolen them. It wasn't until April 2018, nearly 2 years later, that Bernd was granted full access to the case file. The official conclusion? Mike likely died from a fall. However, German prosecutors theorized that trees might have broken his fall, explaining the lack of severe injuries. Yet, this contradicted the Maltese explanation regarding the missing organs, as the German side insisted they were intact when his body was first found. Determined to uncover the truth, Bernd has returned to Malta time and time again, battling bureaucracy, contradictions, and eerie silence. In 2021, he took legal action to obtain a European investigation order, hoping for real answers. To this day, the circumstances of Mike Manshold's death remain a chilling mystery.